Sony has 100 games coming to the PS5. Here's Sony's new $600 PS5 upgrade. And here's how Sony's enhancing your PS5. How's it going, everyone? Welcome to PS Ready. I am so excited to be a PlayStation gamer this week because it's finally time to play Hogwarts Legacy. Now, this obviously isn't a PS5 exclusive. Warner Brothers is sitting there like, we're releasing this on everything under the sun, including the Nintendo Switch, just to rake in as much money as possible. And now that reviews are out, I can see why. Across the board, this game's getting 4.5 out of 5, 9.5 out of 10, 10 out of 10. Everyone loves Hogwarts Legacy, and honestly, I'm like, I can't not be skeptical about this, even though literally every review starts out with, this is the Harry Potter game you've been waiting for. Literally, like Fextra Life, which is one of my favorite YouTube channels for RPGs, their thumbnail is like, this is the one you've been waiting for. And I'm still like, I don't know, how did they nail this, right? It's crazy. We're sitting here in 2023 and all of the biggest games we're looking forward to are licensed games, like a Harry Potter game, Spider-Man 2, and then there's like a really good adaptation of The Last of Us over on HBO. It feels like we're living in Bizarro World, but I am totally happy about this because all of my favorite properties are getting awesome games. I mean, even the Guardians of the Galaxy got an amazing game just a couple years ago. But getting back on track with Hogwarts Legacy, the thing that honestly got me super excited to finally check this game out tonight is the fact that there's full-on transmog. I didn't realize that it was like sort of a gear-based game, like your clothes, I was gonna say armor, your clothes actually have like stats and attributes, but if you want to be dripped out for like the entire experience, like you find an outfit that you enjoy super early on, there's full transmog just unlocked right out of the gate, and that's awesome. The one issue I've seen across all reviews though is no matter where you play it, there are going to be some performance issues. Like it mostly seems to run at 1440p 60 in the performance mode. It does have multiple performance modes, so you can use variable refresh rate if your TV supports that, and if you got the new beta update for your PS5, you can do 1440p now with variable refresh rate, which is awesome. And then the 4K quality mode obviously runs at 30 FPS, but it's nice to see multiple different graphics modes coming to this game because, you know, on the surface it's coming to everything else, but it really does look and feel from all the trailers and gameplay videos that have been put out like a next-gen experience. So I'm glad to see that we can at least get close to a locked 60 FPS on PlayStation 5. So because this is a AAA release in 2023 and it's going to be a big one, they've got to have a whole bunch of different editions of the game. So the collector's edition has been sold out for a while, but I've seen it popping in and out of stock on GameStop's website. It's like $290, and I don't know about this just because you have to order it shipping through GameStop and they're shipping it on Friday, but it gives you 72-hour early access, so kind of a mess there. I would recommend picking up the deluxe edition of the game over at Best Buy, right? Because the main edition of the game on PS5 is $70, the deluxe edition is $80, and the difference is you get a couple cosmetics for sure, but you also get to play the game today. At the time you're watching this video, it comes out Monday night, which is when I'm filming this video. But the reason I'm saying pick it up at Best Buy is because you get a $10 gift card. So that $10 upgrade fee to play it 3 days early, that's technically being waived, and you get a few extra cosmetics as well. And B, I get a little bit of a kickback if you buy it from Best Buy. So I would really appreciate it if you use those links in the description. It's really crazy how January and February are shaking out this year with games. I mean, we just got Dead Space, we got Hi-Fi Rush, and now we have Hogwarts Legacy all being bangers right in a row. It's actually really cool because last year we had Elden Ring, and then there was just like a huge drought of games all the way towards the middle of the summer / the end of the year. Either way, the little kid in me is super stoked. I love Harry Potter so much, and it's cool that you get to make your own character and live a story that's detached from the books and movies. So yeah, like I mentioned, links down in the description to pick up the game early. Next up, I got a news story that's a little bit disappointing, and you guys are probably gonna laugh if you watch any of my recent videos because every time I get a reason to bring up The Last of Us coming to PC, I'm super excited because the release date was March 3rd, which is my birthday, and unfortunately, it just got delayed. So yeah, it was originally coming out on March 3rd on PC, but Naughty Dog came out and said, hey, we wanna polish this game, we wanna make sure it looks and runs as well as possible on PC, so we're delaying it all the way till the end of the month on March 28th, which honestly isn't that big of a delay. The issue is that puts it right up against Resident Evil 4 Remake. And look, you guys know I'm the biggest Last of Us fan in the world. I've bought it, every edition of it. I bought it on PS3, I bought it on PS4, and I bought it on PS5, and I'm full on planning to buy it on PC. I'm just telling you right now, my favorite game of all time is Resident Evil 4, so I will be waiting on The Last of Us Part 1 on PC now in favor of playing Resident Evil 4 Remake on launch on the PlayStation PlayStation 5, just because, you know, I gotta support the remake of my favorite game of all time. It's actually kind of funny that this game is getting delayed because it wouldn't be a Last of Us game if it didn't get a last second delay just to polish things out. Both The Last of Us 1 on PS3 and The Last of Us Part 2 on PS4 got last second delays of just like a month or two to really polish the game up. And then ultimately when the game came out, they were both technical masterpieces. Like they ran at completely solid frame rates, there were no glitches in the games, and for the most part, those delays were totally justified. So yeah, seeing the same thing happen on PC, I'm not too worried about it. And also, there's just so much stuff happening in that first week of March / last week of February already between The Mandalorian Season 3. I'm excited for the Jedi Survivor book that's coming out, like a prequel novel. There's already tons of stuff taking up that week. So yeah, now we have the end of March to look forward to for The Last of Us Part 1 on PC, Resident Evil 4 Remake, and then the end of April to look forward to for Jedi Survivor. I'm glad that all of these big games are getting spread out because now it's like Hogwarts Legacy, got about a month to play that, and that's good because it looks like it's a 120-hour game to finish it. Then we've got Resident Evil 4 Remake, and then we've got Jedi Survivor. They're all spread out perfect. Also, we'll talk about it in a minute, but I've got a bunch of games to play on the PSVR too because goddamn does Gran Turismo look good. That comes out at the end of February, so yeah, that week is absolutely packed. So in my last video, we talked about the brand new PS5 update beta, and when I filmed that video, I had not gotten my email with the beta code, but then right after I uploaded it, I got my beta code email. And I took some time over the weekend to try out some of the new features, and there are two very clear standouts that really worked well for me. The first one, honestly, is pretty small, but it makes a huge difference. So when you make your game lists, which are essentially folders where you can go into your PS5's library and add a bunch of titles into your game lists, they've added the ability to sort your games in the actual folders by PS4 or PS5, which is great because a lot of people apparently are having issues adding specific versions of their games to these folders. So a lot of people who have PS Plus Extra and just spam the download button on stuff like Ghost of Tsushima, they might be adding the PS4 version of the director's cut into the folder instead of the PS5 version, which is super frustrating, obviously, because even though the PS4 version runs at a locked 60 frames per second, the director's cut looks just a little bit better on PS5. So the ability to say, hey, I'm gonna make sure that only PS5 versions of these games are showing up in my game lists, that's great. That's something that should have been there from the beginning, obviously, but again, it's nice to see Sony fixing things that people are directly complaining about. The next thing is being able to wirelessly update my DualSense controller. So charging the DualSense is kind of a mess on the PlayStation 5, and it has been since launch. I basically can't get the thing to charge unless I use the front USB port of the PlayStation 5, and then I have to put my DualSense on my TV, and you basically also have to use the included DualSense charging cord. You can't just take like the USB-C cord from your MacBook charger and plug it into the USB on your PS5 and use that. It doesn't work, right? So digging that specific cord out and plugging my controller into the PS5 every time it bugs me about an update, that's super frustrating. So now, just like over on the Xbox, you can do it wirelessly and it works great. I was able to test it out with the DualSense Edge. It updated just as fast as it does wired, and I didn't even have to get off the couch to do it, which I give that feature an A+ rating. Good job, Sony. Quality of life features that are small are great because it's like, oh, I never would have thought of them doing that because it would take extra work that's not going to get them any monetary gain, but they did it, and I think that's worth praise. The next updated feature I think is really cool is the way that it interacts with the cloud now. So if you put a PS4 game or a PS5 game that allows you to use PS4 saves and upgrade them to that PS5 version into your PS5 or download either of those games, you will immediately get a notification from your PS5 that says, hey, I noticed that you just downloaded Days Gone and you have a save for that game in the cloud. Hit this notification right now to download that save and you'll be good to go. I think it's really cool that it also works, like I just said, with PS5 versions of games. So if I went out to Best Buy, for example, and picked up the disc version of Death Stranding Director's Cut and popped that into my PS5, it would say, hey, you have a PS4 save that's like 90% complete in the cloud. We're gonna download that and apply it to the PS5 version automatically so you don't have to jump through any hoops to figure this out. Now, I haven't actually been able to test if it works like smart delivery with games like Avengers or Final Fantasy VII Remake Integrate, because that got super irritating where on the Xbox, you would just download the upgraded version of Avengers, or if it existed, the Series X version of Final Fantasy VII Remake Integrate, or like the Xbox version in general. You guys know what I'm saying. And then you would boot the game up and it would automatically say, hey, got your save here. We already moved it over to the Series X version of the game. You are good to go. Whereas on the PS5, you would have to download the PS4 version of Final Fantasy VII Remake and also the PS5 version. You would have to like boot up the game, export your save, boot up the PS5 game, import your save. Super inelegant solution, especially when you consider that the launch base storage that you get on the PlayStation 5 is only 680 gigabytes. That's virtually like nothing, and having a huge game like Final Fantasy VII Remake taking up 2 slots on your PlayStation 5, that's kind of like unacceptable in my opinion. So hopefully if this new upgraded save transfer feature doesn't add that in for games like Final Fantasy VII, which again is one of the more popular games on the PS5, this is like the stepping stone to get us there in the future. But I'm glad Sony's still working on this save transferring feature and cloud save feature, because again, it's something that really doesn't help them to fix in the long run, right? Like they're going out of their way to improve it, and I think that's cool. Sony's been really good about that since the PS5 launch, and I feel like it's worth pointing out so they know that people like getting feature updates like this even 2 years after launch. So like I just mentioned earlier, the PSVR 2 is right around the corner. We've been getting previews that are super positive. We've been getting gameplay demos from other people that are also super positive, and now Sony is fighting off these rumors that said that they cut their production all the way down to 1 million units from 2 million. They're saying, nope, we have gotten great pre-orders on this thing, and also people are really looking forward to games. But just to drive that nail into Bloomberg even further, they're like, yo, there are over 100 games in development for the PlayStation VR 2 right now. Now, just to be clear, those aren't first-party games. That would be kind of insane for Sony to have all of their studios making over 100 games, but I think it's actually positive that there's over 100 games in development and they're all not at Sony, right? Like there's a ton of third-party games out there from developers who are paying attention to the PSVR 2, because you need games to make something successful like a headset that's $550. So it's nice to see that there are a ton of games coming to it. But thankfully, we're not going to have to wait long to get some awesome experiences on the headset, because previews came out last weekend, and yeah, things are looking really good for this device. Gran Turismo 7 specifically is the standout. People are saying that if you play this on the PSVR 2, it feels like it was built for a VR headset. It doesn't feel like you're playing a game that was built to be played on a controller that's just upscaled and retooled to work on a headset. They basically went way out of their way to make this feel like the ultimate VR driving game, which is crazy considering that you can get stuff like racing wheels for your PlayStation 5, and that makes the game even more realistic, right? Like you put the VR headset on, you plug in your racing wheel, you've got your racing chair, you've got your gear shift, you've got your brake, your clutch, your gas, and then you can take your new Corvette around Laguna Seca and you're like actually there. I mean, even if you put like fans on you or something, you could act like the windows rolled down. You could have the most immersive experience that you'll never have, mainly because the car you're driving is like 120 grand and you can't just go on that racetrack, I'm pretty sure. But there's also a hidden benefit with the PSVR 2 that I don't see a lot of people talking about, and that's the cinematic mode. So if you buy one of these headsets, you can basically put this thing on, plug it into your console, sit on your couch, and play any PS5 game you want on a massive movie theater style screen. Now those games will still remain 2D and they won't be like VR upscaled because you're playing the PS5 version of the game, but I still think that's really cool, especially if you're someone who is forced to play on like a PC monitor or a smaller TV and you don't have a lot of space in your apartment or house to really take advantage of when it comes to having a big screen for your PS5. Now you can just sit there with this awesome headset on and get a full-on theater-like experience, and because of the PSVR 2's screen, which is an OLED screen that has a really good pixel density, it's not going to be a visual downgrade to your eyes or brain if you're looking at this technically 3 or 4 inch screen that's in front of your eyes. This is actually something I've taken advantage of with the Oculus Quest 2. You can connect it to an app on your PC called Big Screen VR that lets you stream stuff from your desktop into a movie theater, and I have watched a ton of movies that way. Like when we were all stuck inside, that was like my preferred way to watch movies. I'd connect my really nice Apple headphones to the actual headset, I'd pop them on, and I'd sit there in a movie theater watching the digital release of Kong vs. Godzilla for the 100th time, because that was like just such a good movie that I think personally is super underrated. Specifically, the output of the games to the headset is going to be limited at 1080p, but again, having it shrunk down that small, you're not going to really notice the downgrade visually, and most games running at 60 FPS on the PS5 at this point anyway are only 1440p, which really isn't that big of a jump from 1080p, and because of the awesome new screens in the actual headset, you'll still be able to retain the cooler stuff like HDR features, which you definitely couldn't do on the PSVR 1. And on the PSVR 1, if you did a similar thing to this, it would look like you were watching your game through a screen door. And finally, because your VR experience is always better with higher frame rates, you're going to be able to play these games at 120 hertz if they support it. So if you have a normal TV that's only 60 hertz and doesn't have variable refresh rate or anything like that, you'll now be able to take advantage of 120 hertz on your PSVR 2. And again, because it's outputting at 1080p on your actual screens, that's basically the resolution all the games that support 120 FPS target anyway, so you're not going to see a huge visual downgrade. That's like a very cool hidden benefit of something like the PSVR 2, and it's just massively improved across the board from the first version of the PSVR, mainly because of the awesome screens, the great headset, and of course the fact that you only need one cable versus whatever the mess was that you had with the PSVR 1. And then of course, you guys know me, the biggest game I'm excited to try out is Resident Evil Village. I just love Eastern European architecture. I love that look and feel. I love that Resident Evil 4 style gameplay that they included in Resident Evil Village, and doing it in VR is going to be so awesome. I don't know if this was announced yet, so you can let me know down in the comments, but I really hope Resident Evil 7 Biohazard gets a retroactive update that lets you use PSVR 2 with it, because that is a game that I never got to play in VR because Sony locked it down to the PSVR 1, and because of the lower frame rate and weird screen door effect, playing that game gave me motion sickness in VR, but getting high frame rate and a higher resolution screen with that would be awesome. So I really hope Capcom and Sony figure out a way to retroactively update that game to work with the PSVR 2, because that would be incredible. And I think everyone in the world owns that game on PS5 now, because it's included in the PS Plus collection until May 10th, and it's been on PS Plus like multiple times.